Good morning. Almost not morning anymore. You guys hungry for lunch? So, growing up, I lived in a house like this. We didn't have a computer. We didn't have a TV, or a phone, or electricity, or plumbing. So when we moved to the city, and we still didn't have a TV or a computer, but we did have electricity, I was old enough that I can remember learning how to use a light switch and a toilet. And that has stuck with me. Not just because it was something that I had to figure out. It wasn't natural to me. It wasn't native to me. It was an alien interaction. But because it was obvious to me the first time that it was much better for the individual and the community not to have to go in this scary, smelly, cold place full of spiders. When I was about 5 or 6, I visited my grandparents for the first time for the summer, and they had a middle-class kind of house, and it had a dishwasher and a TV and some other technology that I had not experienced. They also, because they were having grandchildren come to visit, they had this game that they'd hooked up to their TV. It was called Pong. It was awesome. And I played a lot of Pong that summer. If you'd asked me who made Pong, I'd have said, maybe Sky Robots? Because not only did I not have the vocabulary to understand what was happening inside the machine, but I didn't even have the context or heuristic for how you might possibly affect the machine to make it take care of the rules while you did the inputs and got to experiment and see what happened. But I did remember that experience. I remembered it very, very well. So fast forward about 12 years, and I'm living with a roommate who has a personal computer, which is very exciting for me. And she's cool if I use it, but only when she doesn't have to use it. And she's in college, so she's using it a lot. So it turns out the only time I can really use it is when she's asleep, so in the middle of the night. And the problem with that is I don't know how to use a computer. Not at all. And I don't want to wake her up, because that's kind of not the deal. So I figure it out, and I figure it out for one reason. I wanted to play this game. The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy game was based on a popular science fiction novel of the time, and I wanted to play it really badly. I had read the novel, and I knew I liked games, and so I figured it out. I figured out how to turn the machine on. I figured out how to load the operating system by putting a floppy disk into the thing, and then to load the game. I figured out how to type, because this is a text game, and so the way it works is the game describes to you the room that you're in and what is in the room, and you type in what you want to do. Get up, turn on light, eat buffered analgesic. Is there anybody here who's typed those words? So I learned how to use a computer, and I learned how to type, and I learned that it's not a great big black box with mysterious things happening behind it, but that it's a system of logic gates which I can affect and understand. And I learned that I can learn how to use a computer. And that was very exciting for me. But if you'd asked me, who made Hitchhiker's Guide? I'd have said, some kind of genius wizards? Because I knew enough at that time to know that computer programmers made games, but I didn't know, what did that mean? What are you doing when you're programming a computer? I had no idea. And I'm not even sure I would have known that they type, you know? I was that far away from being able to do any of that. So for the next 5 or so years, I worked a series of reasonably uninspiring jobs. I was a cashier at a large retail store. I worked a lot of fast food. I was a dog washer one summer. I came home every day smelling like wet dog. It was not awesome. And because my daily life was wasn't great, my reality was pretty dull, I wanted to escape a lot into this thing that I had found, games. I really wanted this. And so I found a lot of ways to get my hands on computers. I went to the library. I went to coffee shops. A lot of times coffee shops at that time would let you play with their machines as long as you bought a lot of coffee. I bought a lot of coffee. I would save up money and I would buy games. Here are some of my favorites. I would go to my friends' houses and hang out and play games with them. I would suggest to them that maybe they would want to play this game that I have bought because they would run on the machine. But a lot of times I could get access to a computer, but I didn't have access to a game. They were really expensive, especially for somebody who's working fast food, right? But almost every machine at that time had this game Solitaire on it. It shipped with every machine. And in fact, I think it may still ship with every machine. And so I played a lot of Solitaire. And one day, I'm talking to a guy that I went to high school with, and he says, the game company that I work for needs people to come do this kind of boring, hard work that nobody wants to do. And I said, ooh, I really want to do that work. But I don't know anything about computers. I don't think I'm qualified. And he said, if you can play Solitaire, you could do this. And I thought, I can play Solitaire. I can play a lot of Solitaire. And so I went, and somehow I talked myself into the job, and I got the job. And I worked in game development for the next 20 years. And that was pretty great. I got to do a lot of things I wouldn't have gotten to do otherwise. I got to work with machines that were way outside of any budget I could possibly have imagined. You know, $40,000 workstations with $20,000 worth of software on them. That was very exciting. I worked a lot of really late nights. I learned how play is the primary way that people like to learn things. That motivated people will learn almost anything through play. I learned that people like me made video games. That you didn't have to be a genius wizard. And that was pretty cool. And fast forward 20 years. Last September, I was invited to a sort of senior game designer gathering where a bunch of senior game designers get together and we talk about things that game design can solve and problems that game design causes and all kinds of stuff like that. And this guy was there. Does anybody know who that was? His name is Steve Meretzky. Steve Meretzky is the genius wizard who dropped out of MIT to make The Hitchhiker's Guide. Woo! Okay, so you gotta tell Steve, right? He made the game that changed your life. You gotta say something. So all weekend, I'd come up to Steve, and oh no, not right now. And I'd walk into the room that Steve was, I'm gonna tell him. It made a big difference in my life. I'm gonna tell him. I walk up, oh, not right now. Day 3, it's pretty much the last day. You pretty much have to do it. So Steve gets up to get some coffee, and I kind of sidle up to Steve, and I say, Steve, he's really tall. And he says, yeah. And I say, you've probably heard this story 100 times. And he says, probably. And at that point, I almost bailed, but it probably would be worse to bail at that point than to actually just tell him, right? And so I say, I learned how to use computers because of Hitchhiker's Guide, and now I'm a game designer because of it. And he says, you're wrong. I haven't heard that story 100 times. I've heard it 1,000 times. And I said, oh, wow, so original, Harley. But thank you anyway? And he said, yeah, no problem. And I've been thinking about that conversation a lot since then. Because here's the truth. Steve Meretzky is a genius, but he is not a wizard. He was somebody who had a rarefied skill set at the right time to be able to do something that touched 1,000 people in a dramatic way, taught them a skill they didn't know that they were ever going to be able to learn. And there were a lot of other game designers at the time who did similar things and made games that touched other people. And those people got together, they learned computers, and they changed the culture that we live in from one where computers were not an inherent part of everyday life to one where computers are an inherent part of everyday life. That snowball effect started with people like Steve. And I hope that I have managed to inspire and touch some players with my games in my life. The truth is, I'm not even a genius, though. Like Steve, I'm not a wizard. I'm just somebody who was kind of interested and stubborn enough to keep trying to do it. And so that kind of leaves me with this question, right? When games started being made, they were hard to make. But it was people like Steve that made it easier for them to make because A, they gave us the skills, and B, the world changed. And computers have certainly changed our culture in other ways. As an easy example, Hitchhiker's Guide game was made because there was a popular book. These days, people write books and make movies because of a popular game. So there's been a cultural shift there as well. You don't have to even be stubborn to make games anymore. All you need is interest. You can download, for free, powerful game engines that will let you make your vision. You can download tools that will let you make the art and animation for free to put into your games. You can go on places like YouTube and Twitch, and you can watch a vast array of tutorials and explanations of how to do what you want to do from some of the brightest minds in the industry. They're out there, and they want to teach you. You can buy a computer at Goodwill for $100 that does more than that $40,000 computer I learned on. So these days, making games is still powerful, and it can still change our culture. But now it's easy. And now we have a whole generation of people who, unlike me, who had to learn technology at every step, people who are digital natives, people who understand more than I do how easy it is to learn technology. They're comfortable in that space. So here is what I came out here to tell you. Making games is easy, and anybody can do it. And games are really powerful tools. They can change our culture. And if those two things are true, then therefore, anybody can change our culture. So my question for you is, what changes do you want to see? Thank you.